You pick up your phone. You didn't decide to. Your hand just moved. 30 seconds later, you put it down and you can't remember what you were looking for. You do this 40, 60, maybe 100 times a day. But the real answer for why isn't about willpower. It isn't about apps being addictive in some vague sense. It's about a circuit in your brain that is millions of years older than the phone itself, and it was never built to handle what you're feeding it. Your brain runs on prediction. Every second, it is guessing what happens next. Will there be food behind that bush? Will that sound in the grass be a threat? Getting the guess right used to matter enormously. So your brain evolved a reward system to make sure you kept guessing, kept checking, kept looking. That system runs on a chemical called dopamine. And here's the part almost everyone gets wrong. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical, it's the anticipation chemical. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz ran an experiment on monkeys. He gave them a juice reward paired with a light. At first, the monkeys' dopamine spiked when the juice arrived. But after they learned the pattern, something strange happened. The dopamine spike moved. It stopped firing when the juice hit their tongue. It started firing the moment the light turned on. The reward itself became almost irrelevant. What mattered was the signal that a reward might be coming. Now here's the twist that made Schultz's discovery even stranger. When he made the reward unpredictable, sometimes the light led to juice, sometimes it didn't. The dopamine response didn't drop, it spiked even higher. Uncertainty, it turns out, is more motivating to your brain than certainty. Not knowing if you'll get the reward makes you want to check more, not less. Does that sound familiar yet? Half a century before Schultz's monkeys, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner was running a very different experiment with pigeons. He built a box with a lever. Press the lever, get a food pellet. Simple. But Skinner noticed something when he changed the rules. If the pigeon got a pellet every single time it pressed the lever, it would eventually stop pressing once it was full. Predictable rewards lose their pull. But if Skinner made the pellets appear randomly, sometimes after one press, sometimes after 20, the pigeons pressed the lever compulsively, over and over, even when they weren't hungry, even when nothing was coming. He called this a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, and it produced the single most persistent, hardest-to-break behavior he ever recorded in his lab. You already know a modern place that uses this exact schedule. Casinos have used it for decades. Slot machines are engineered so you never know which pull pays out. That uncertainty is the entire mechanism. It's not a side effect. It's the design. An anthropologist named Natasha Dow-Schul spent 15 years embedded with slot machine designers and the gamblers who couldn't stop playing them. She found something the industry doesn't advertise. The goal was never to make players win big. The goal was to get players into what she called the zone, a state where the individual jackpot stops mattering and the rhythm of pulling and waiting becomes the reward itself. Players in her interviews didn't say they played to win money. They said they played to keep playing. Now think about your phone again. Every time you pull it out of your pocket, you don't know what's waiting. A text, a like, nothing at all. A notification that turns out to be an ad. You are pulling a lever built on the exact same uncertain schedule that kept Skinner's pigeons pecking and Schul's gamblers glued to their seats. Nobody had to invent a new mechanism for your phone. They just borrowed the oldest, most effective one science had already found. But there's a deeper layer underneath the dopamine loop, and it goes back further than any casino. For nearly all of human history, checking your environment for new information was a survival skill, not a distraction. A rustling bush might be wind. It might be a predator. The ancestors who checked, who stayed alert to sudden changes in their surroundings, were more likely to survive than the ones who tuned it out. That hypervigilance got passed down generation after generation, wired into the same reward circuitry Schultz mapped in his monkeys. Your phone hijacks that exact circuitry. A notification is a rustle in the grass. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a message from a friend and a warning of a predator. It just knows something changed, and change demands attention. Multiply that ancient instinct by the number of apps on your home screen, each one competing for the same alert system, each one pinging that same prediction machine dozens of times an hour, and you get a brain running the exact same survival software it ran on the savannah, except now it's parsing marketing emails. Here's where it gets even more counterintuitive. You'd think the solution is just more self-control. Try harder. Put the phone in another room. And that can help, temporarily. But a psychologist named Larry Rosen, who has spent decades studying the relationship between technology and anxiety, found something important in his research. The urge to check isn't really about the phone at all. It's about a rising background hum of anxiety that builds the longer you go without checking. Rosen's study showed that even hearing a phone buzz nearby without touching it was enough to measurably impair people's attention on an unrelated task. The mere possibility of new information was enough to pull focus away. You don't need the notification to be distracted. You just need to know one might exist. So the checking isn't really about curiosity, and it isn't really about boredom either. It's a very old alarm system, mismatched to a very new environment, running on a chemical that rewards the chase more than the catch. Every time you unlock your screen and find nothing interesting, your brain doesn't file that as a failure. It files it as evidence that this time it might be different, and so it stays hooked, waiting for the next uncertain pull of the lever. Does that mean you're broken? No. It means your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do in an environment engineered to exploit that design at industrial scale. The people building these systems know about Skinner's pigeons. They know about Schultz's monkeys. Some of them, by their own admission, have studied Schultz's research on slot machines directly. The uncertainty in your notifications isn't an accident of technology. It's a repurposed survival mechanism dressed up in a glass rectangle running in your pocket right now. Which brings it back to that moment. Your hand moves toward your phone. You didn't decide to. 30 seconds later, you put it down and you can't remember what you were looking for. But now you know what actually happened in that 30 seconds. It wasn't a lapse in willpower. It was a 100,000-year-old alarm system still checking the grass for movement, still convinced that this time the rustle might be something worth finding.
Thanks for watching, Day. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. One step, one habit, one better version of you.